Good afternoon. I'd like to pick up on one of the key, points being raised today in relation to disruptive technologies. I just want to focus in on kind of like the importance and criticality of applying disruption to our fight against climate change and also the biodiversity crisis that we're currently going through. Because tinkering around the edges of incumbent, inefficient, high carbon, high land use systems just won't cut it in relation to the targets we got to achieve. My own sector, I'm working in a sector of biotechnology where we focus on extracting high value carbon out of what we call scrap carbon. Now, scrap carbon basically is that very large reservoir of what we call poor quality biomass that and waste and crop residue for which the primary valorization is mostly combustion, composting, etc., where we're focusing on getting good, high quality carbon products out of that. So, and that then can be applied to decarbonizing the two key sectors, which is energy and food, which represent over 90% of our carbon emissions. So if we look at energy first, then as we know, we're already going through a disruption, obviously with electricity in terms of the wind and solar, which in the first instance, we know that electricity represents 20% of the energy mix. That obviously is the first target, but clearly getting into transport, into heat, then electricity will be used to decarbonize a lot of other sectors. However, there is always going to be a core section of the energy mix that will require what I call energetic fluids, or oil and gas needs to be decarbonized. The problem is our first generation attempts at biofuels being poor. There's a very good reason that our cars don't run on 100% bioethanol or biodiesel, because the problem is every human would have to have 1 hectare of good quality arable land dedicated themselves to support that. It's frankly bonkers, so we're leaving that behind. So we focused on a technology that can go after scrap carbon, this poor quality biomass and waste. So for example, we're now getting as much kind of like we go after the primary building block of organic chemistry and fossil fuels, which is the methane molecule. We can extract as much methane from the crop residue, let's say the straw, then from the food, kind of like the corn itself. And that gives us the opportunity to greatly diversify the materials we can use to generate this renewable biofuels. Similarly, we're going after unsegregated municipal solid waste, which again is another huge reservoir, which then allows us to open up kind of like large volumes of this renewable methane that then can be used for decarbonizing, obviously, natural gas. But once you have the methane molecule in a sustainable form in large volumes cheaply, you can then move it up the stream. We can convert it into sustainable aviation fuels. Even other sectors which can't be electrified, such as the chemical industry, like methanol, there's 50 million tons generated every year from natural gas. If you have large volumes, again, of renewable gas, you can then decarbonize that. Similar, you may be aware, like you're facing a fertilizer crisis. Many may not be aware it's because of natural gas, which is used to generate the ammonia that drives the fertilizers. So again, if you have large volumes of relatively low-cost renewable methane, that also can be decarbonized, and that is a major disruption that we're working on. Moving into the food sector, the biggest challenge with the food sector, and it was mentioned this morning, is that we have to increase our protein output by about 50% globally. And of course, that's a huge issue in relation to land use, which we don't have, and also to try and keep on target for zero carbon. So that's a huge challenge, and I think that sector is due for disruption in a good way, in that we do need to focus on decarbonizing our animal agriculture. And the one technology which is coming to address that is known as precision fermentation or biomass fermentation. So if we take our bovine unit, the cow, it's served us well for 10,000 years, but its efficiency of converting biomass into, say, milk protein is 4%. I mean, there's no technology will be acceptable at that level. We don't have the land to kind of like increase our herds by 50%, so we need something else. So for example, bioreactors with microbes can generate the 2 primary proteins from dairy, which is whey and casein, at an efficiency of 40%. So that hugely improves the land requirement and the sustainability. Where we come in is that our technology also can not only get methane from this biomass, we can also get sugar. So we're finding, for example, that we can get as much sugar out of old hay that you can get out of sugar beet on a ton per ton basis. So that allows us to work with a far wider range of kind of vegetation types to get the sugar that feeds into these bioreactors. So for example, our model is we have a vessel which is, say, 60 cubic meters. We can replace 5,000 cattle with this one unit in relation to the inputs of straw, hay, grass, and the sugar from that process, when fed into these bioreactors, can generate the same volume and mass of milk protein than the original animals. But the big advantage is that we have now displaced 80% of the land, freed it up for rewilding or for other use, and also it's carbon negative. So in summary, what we've been working on, again, is valorizing and extracting the two primary building blocks of energy and food, which is methane and sugar, from this large reservoir of what I call scrap carbon, which hopefully will feed into these other systems, which will give us the disruption that's required. Thank you.